Okay, Megavanan everyone, welcome to a My Thoughts video. I've been seeing a lot of videos on this on YouTube, and even while scrolling through my phone, under the Google, search thing that just pops up, and is Oblivion Remastered actually better than Skyrim, and comparing Oblivion Remastered to Skyrim, and I just wanted to give my thoughts and show comparison between the two, which one I like better, I guess. Another video I wanted to make, but I want to try to track down all of my Elder Scrolls boxes, starting with Arena and Daggerfall. I have Morrowind back over there. I think Oblivion, I have a collector's edition of that. That is at my dad's house, so I have to get that still. And that was on 360, and just show them all. And Skyrim as well. So what I will do is I'm going to pause it quickly and go to one of the games. Okay, this is sort of a take two. I didn't get very far, however, I was pretty much at the end of this segment.
Yes?
I'll
What
try
did
to
you
speak
need?
a bit better. Okay, so this is my Ariadne character here in the College of Winterhold. And this is my Ariadne. Modded, of course. And of course, you can see how much more prettier the faces are. Now what are these books? Oh, okay. Now, if I wanted to go into my character profile, just kind of look over my character sheet, this is what we have here. So we go up here to level up. Okay, and here we have my name, my level, race, and all of my skills here. And then the perks. My inventory. Again, keep in mind, this is modded. And the magics. And really, this is it.
Since we've...
the main part of your character sheet is up here. And really, not too much to read. Now I'm going to switch over to Oblivion Remastered so you can compare. Okay, so here I'm in Oblivion, and this is in the Westfield Inn.
How are you?
Hello.
Okay, so if I want to go into my character sheet, here. Now this is far more robust compared to what we got in Skyrim. So each thing here, again, we have the character sheet, the inventory, the magic. But this character sheet right here, see, we have race. You can choose to hide the details, and you can actually read about it. In addition to the quick and perceptive grasp of spellcraft, we have the birth sign. Was there a place for the birth sign in Skyrim? I think you actually have to look under active spell effects. I think really that is the only way. Then the class, something that was lacking in Skyrim. I understand where they were going with that in Skyrim, where you sort of create your character and your character class along the way. But I much prefer this way, you know, either choosing a class from a list or a custom class, you know, creating your own class. And we have the level, and then of course Magicka, health and fatigue. And then we go to inventory. You know, and we have all of these. And again, what's nice is you can show the details. You know, just like, you know, in Skyrim, you can manipulate the item and go into details. It's much more easier to read it this way. The print is much bigger instead of that small little box, especially if there's like a lot of text to read. The font becomes a lot smaller. Okay, and then we have the magics. These are the active effects. This is all of them. The only thing that is lacking, and because it is, you know, sort of a new feature, is, you know, the category for origin. I think that is because in, you know, the original Oblivion, you know, there wasn't a category for that, although Bethesda originally intended to put that in there to have an origin. So I guess they couldn't squeeze it in, but, you know, if they update this, I feel that it's not too hard to add that. Maybe put it somewhere under race. You know, you can, you know, when you highlight your race, either have a page 2 or have it so you can scroll down and it gives what origin, you know, you picked, right? But right now I don't see anything for that. The next thing I want to look at is the quest log, but I'm going to start with Skyrim. Okay, so back here.
Yes? What did you need?
J, right, okay. So here is the quest log, and, you know, looking at this, you might think it's okay, but it's, you know, quite a bit more limited than what we have in, you know, Oblivion, you know, Morrowind, and Oblivion Remastered. When you look at these quests, you know, for these main quests here, it's okay. You know, we have a paragraph and a bunch of bullet points. But I mean, it's very the way it updates in bullet points, and you just have the one paragraph, you know, and the one sentence. It doesn't really, you know, it basically erases the steps that you took to get to the next step of the quest. And then miscellaneous, it's all just bullet points. Return to Sidgar. Ori is here, you know. Well, this one is a tracker, but talk to the face sculptor. But, you know, talk to Aventus Arantino. It would have been nice if I could click on these, you know, and then it would expand it and at least give a brief summary of, you know, where I overheard this and kind of what it was about. And here are the completed quests. And here we have the general stats. This is more or less the same, so there's really no need to compare this. These are just statistics, which is quite nice. Okay, now when we take a look at Oblivion,
How goes
she
it?
doesn't. She doesn't look as hot. It's okay, but
How are you?
she doesn't look bad. But I'm just saying, you know, when it's modded, what the people have come up with is, you know, the modders. She still looks good, but you know, I guess whereas my other Ariadne to me is like a 9.5, 9.75. I mean, she is probably in the realm of like, I don't know, 7. You know, it's not.
You seek
Not
my
bad,
help?
but
You look like a bright one.
a 7 by comparison. But if you're not really comparing, you know, because I'm fresh off of looking at the other one, the other Ariadne, I mean, I probably would have given her like an 8, you know.
I take it
But
you
the
want
lighting
something.
in here is
Well, what is it?
absolutely fantastic.
What's going on with you?
And look
I
at these
ran into a
faces.
couple of mud crabs not long ago. Annoying creatures.
They're like
Horrid
almost
beasts.
exaggerated
I hate
faces,
the
right?
thing.
Okay,
Farewell.
but what I meant to do here is it J? Okay, good. So this is the journal. Now, as you can see, when I click on a quest to make it my active, so like this one is my active quest, I can inspect, and it, you know, goes more into detail about every step. See, you know, when I first picked up a nernroot for the first time, I recovered a sprig of nernroot, a plant ingredient this unusual must have value. You know, it goes to the next step, and I can activate this quest. Right. Oh. Let's go to, okay. Find the air. So now that's my active. But really, you know, I can just inspect anything. How do I... Oh, okay. Yeah, see, all of these steps. And the current phase that I'm on this quest, I need to return to Wine and Priory with Martin and discuss our next move with Joffrey. See? And then the completed quests. What was the... Unearthing Maroon's Razor. I've recovered Maroon's Razor, potent Daedric dagger which has a chance to instantly destroy an opponent. I've entered Sundercliff Watch, a place that folklore links to Maroon's Dagon. I should explore the area. A diary I found contains a password to explore further and seems to indicate that, you see. I've read Drothin's journal. He's gone into Varsa Balim. And this is what I'm talking about. So now, when you reflect back on what you just saw for a journal in Skyrim, it looks very lackluster and very unimpressive and very thin, whereas this one is quite robust. Look at all these little steps, you know, step by step every time it updates, not just replacing text, you know, not just replacing it, but updating the journal. And this is how I like it. Because, I mean, really, you know, you want to, that's what a journal is, right? It's to record, you know, the events that, you know, in your adventures and events that have taken place during your adventures. And, you know, when you refer back to your journal, you know, you're reminded of, you know, the things you've done and the steps you took. So I love that. And the map, I mean, we don't really have to go into that, although, you know, when it started off, I think it was like normally this close. Not started off in original Oblivion, right? But now you can zoom all the way out which is great, so you can have a bigger picture of the map. I love that. Oh, and what was it? So here, okay, these are the details. Right, okay. So this part is the same. But as I said, you know, going back to this, you know, to the character sheet and comparing it to Skyrim, you know, they've already with this, you know, they've taken enough, you know, they've removed enough RPG elements going from, you know, Daggerfall to Morrowind and Morrowind, you know, to Oblivion. They don't need to take any more. But even this still had very good, you know, RPG mechanics and elements to it. And then Skyrim, they just dumbed it down even further. You know, I don't know if dumbed it down is the correct word, but just removed like more RPG elements here. This one, in fact, they put something in, you know, for the character creation, giving you an origin, so you can kind of, you know, read that beginning origin story between the two. Pick the one that you like and pick the one that gave you the stats that you like, and then you know, imagine the rest of it. You know, just go from there. You know. And here's another thing I forgot to bring up. Look, this one was seriously lacking in Skyrim, having attributes, the luck attribute, you know, personality, endurance, all of this. It's great. And then you remember in Skyrim, the constellation, which showcased your stats. I prefer this format, you know, with the, you know, novice, apprentice, journeyman, and you're unlocking, and master, you know, unlocking different abilities with each rank, versus the perk system. And they've removed skills like blade, you know, athletics, blunt, right? Acrobatics, athletics. You see what I mean? So there was far more detail in not only the character creation, but also on your character sheet, inventory, and everything, you know. Okay, so you know, I'm not even going to, you know, get into the graphics or anything like that. I guess I will briefly say that I think.
What?
Okay, so which one do I prefer? Did, you know, Oblivion Remastered take my #1 spot for favorite RPG? And I have to say, no. For me, it's still Skyrim, my modded Skyrim. But this one
May your
might be a
kills
very,
be
very
quick
close
and
second.
many.
And my reasons for that, let me go outside actually. My reasons for that is, I think in Skyrim, even though they did all those changes that, you know, I didn't like, you know, removed, you know, certain things, I like how the combat, it flows better, you know, having independent, you know, left and hand movements, or, you know, you can have a spell on one hand and a different spell on the other. You can dual wield, you know, things like that. It moves a bit better during combat, I have to say. So there's that. The world itself, even though, you know, this world is great and it's big, Skyrim, I don't know which one is bigger, but I have to say that I feel Skyrim feels a bit bigger, even if they're about the same size, or but maybe Skyrim is actually bigger. I think I read something about that. It has mountainous regions where, you know, if I was to go, I don't know, let's see, let me go to Frost Crag, or let me go over here. The world is feels a bit more like there's more stuff in there, you know, caves and mines and a lot more interesting landmarks to explore. This one, you know, you have your typical Iliad ruin and you know, your cave and towns, right? And what? Oh, okay. And another thing is you have these outdoor towns and cities in Skyrim, you know, like Falkreath, Riverwood, places like that, right? Morthal. Here you have places like Hackdirt, you know, Weatherley, Hackdirt. But when it comes to main cities, they're all, you know, enclosed. You know, you have to go through a load screen. You know, there's nothing just open. So that's another thing too. So it feels more organic when you go into things, you know, because it's a mixture of walking into a big city like Morthal or Dawnstar, and going into cities where it's behind a wall, right? You know, something like that. And like I said, they did a great job here of, you know, giving more depth and having things feel farther away or further away. As you can see the mountains way up over there and the snow caps and everything. So you really have that sense of depth. The trees all look lovely and you have the hills, but you know, it is a reskin of what it was, you know, the basic original Oblivion. Nothing wrong with that, but you know, it is an old school format of how it was, and it's not bad. But in Skyrim, you know, there's a lot more scaling mountains and going under. The topography is a bit more fleshed out and more to it, more places to go and traverse. You know, I hope I'm explaining this correctly. But that does not diminish the beauty of Oblivion Remastered at all. And the quests, let me think for a moment. I feel as if the quests are much more interesting here in Oblivion Remastered versus Skyrim. You know, quests like a brush with death, going into a painting, you know, quests like that. Although they're very formulaic, you know, the quests. There we are. Okay. Very formulaic, meaning, let me pause this for a second. Okay, yeah. So they're like your stereotypical kind of quests, you know, things that you would get in, you know, like the Bard's Tale, or, well, maybe not even that. That's too simple. But things like Might and Magic, right? Ultima Underworld. You know, games like that. You know, those type of quests where they're, you could almost say, almost generic quests, but it has more of that kind of formula. You know, it's nothing too detailed, I guess, like what we have in Skyrim. And the way you come across those quests are very, you know, old school. You know, like I said, with the brush of death, you hear a rumor, you're talking to people, and you get it. Skyrim, you know, you get that too, but it's the type of quests that you get. You don't have anything as extravagant as that, or a Brotherhood quest where you actually attend a party, and you're the killer, and you're knocking them off, you know, the party guests one by one, and you have to do it secretively, stealthy like, so they don't know that you're the one doing it. You don't quite get, you know, quests like that in Skyrim, you know. So I think that I like the quests overall better in Oblivion Remastered. I do like how there's still a mages guild versus just the one, College of Winterhold in Winterhold. So I like that each city has a mages guild. So even with all of that, I just like how refined or what is the word is refined the word more not I guess overall fleshed out and less buggy as Skyrim is. Let me try to think of that word. Oh, by the way, the word I was looking for, it's called polished. Okay, the Elder Scrolls games get more polished with each one. So that's what I was trying to say, is that that is why probably the biggest reason why for me with why Skyrim is still my number one favorite, but yet, like I said, Oblivion Remastered is a very, very close second. Honestly, if I didn't have to pick one, it would be both. But if I had to put it in that order, it would be Skyrim, but then immediately after Oblivion Remastered, right? Even Oblivion, right? But I feel that Skyrim is more polished than Oblivion Remastered, so that is why. Okay. Well, I cannot think of the word, but what I'm trying to say, it's more just less buggy, and more. I guess the only word I could think of is more refined with each iteration. There's a better word, and I used it before, but I just can't remember now what it was. But that's how I feel about it, and that is why Skyrim to me is still, number one for me. I don't care what anyone else thinks about that. Maybe they disagree, but for me, it's still, Skyrim. Both games I'm able to easily roleplay in. The kind of character I can choose to be a waiter and just clear off the tables, wash the dishes by simulating dipping, each cutlery and plate into the lake or river, simulating like I'm washing the dishes, and set the table back up and display the food. I can do both things like that. I can be a traveling merchant and just try to buy low, sell high. So both games I can do it. But I feel that they've perfected their craft in being able to roam around the world. The mechanics, I guess. I don't know if the mechanics are the word, but I'm able to feels more fleshed out and less buggy, when moving, and just the overall combat, everything. It's more fluid, to me, Skyrim, and that's why it wins. Although there are a lot of things I like more in Oblivion Remastered, and same can be said, of course, about Morrowind and Daggerfall, right? Whereas Daggerfall, it's the biggest game of all the Elder Scrolls out there, and probably one of the absolute biggest, and probably the only biggest, right? But at the same time, the world is empty. You can travel from one world of the map, and it would take you, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of hours or days even to get from one point to the other. But why? Who cares? There's nothing really in between, those places. And the quests there are, even though they're endless, they're just plugging in different names and different locations, and you're doing similar type thing, right? So, and not that that's bad, but it worked back then. But things are different now, seeing what kind of how RPGs are made now, I guess, and what the gaming companies are capable of. But I don't want to compare, Daggerfall, to bring that into it. It's just, comparing Skyrim and Oblivion Remastered, and which one I personally prefer. and like more. And for me, it is still Skyrim, but Oblivion Remastered is a very, very close second, almost equal for different reasons, right? Okay, so that's it. I hope you all enjoyed, and see you.